So your training diary is definitely one of the things you're going to spend longest on when you're doing your training program. It's something that I really urge you to keep up to date. So please, guys, keep your training diary up to date. I absolutely guarantee you that this will save you time in the long run if you, after each session, keep a diary of what you did. Otherwise, if you do it at the end, it's, first of all, you've forgotten a great deal, and secondly, it's going to be really low quality. So keep it up to date as you go. Now, most people will do this in sort of like a little book or an exercise book or something like that, keep a record of what you're doing. Other people will do it on their phone and keep it that way. Obviously, it's up to you, but I'm going to show you, I guess, a slightly more traditional method. What must it include? It must include the following things, guys. So your training diary is going to have all of the following, please. It's going to have date, time, and location. Okay, so you are going to state what day you did it on, the time of the day. That's actually a useful piece of information as you progress through this, and also where you did it at the gym, the playing fields, whatever it happens to be. You're going to include the aims and objectives of the session. Okay, now remember, your aims refer to the impact on your sport performance. Your objectives relate to improving your component of fitness by the selected training method, and so on. You're going to include your session duration. Okay, so how long the session was, of course, that relates to the first T of the FIT principle, time. Fourthly even, you're going to refer to the type of training undertaken. Okay, so if you did interval training, that is going to be reported in your diary. You're also going to include in here program details. So how did you apply things like FIT, for example, program details? And I'm going to make sure you realize this relates to FIT, F-I-T-T, lovely. So actually how FIT was applied within the session. You're also going to include a log of personal performance. Actually, what did you lift? What were your split times? What was your heart rate range? Log of personal performance. So that's going to go in there too. I'll show you some examples of that. You're going to include resources required. Now think about, oops, that was meant to be a different color. Resources required. So this is going to be particularly things like equipment. Okay, so what equipment did the session require? And that could show something interesting, because it could show that I'm doing something which is kind of impractical. And finally, how progressive overload was applied. Okay, how progressive overload was applied. So how did you do that? Did you overload frequency, intensity, time, or type? Now, I think it's really important here that I show you some examples. Now, these are not meant to show you everything that a training diary can be, to be completely comprehensive, but they'll give you some good ideas. If I just draw down here, let's focus on this one on the left to begin with, guys. Okay, so over here. So we've got date and time, location. How has FIT been included in this session? The intensity is increased from the previous run, for example. Could go further here and talk about the heart rate percentage, right? We've got in here, we'll come back to it in a second, we've got in here training method, fartlek. We've got in here, of course, intensity, which we'll come back to. Now, I've just added a couple of gaps here because we can start naming things. Look, this is the aims and the objectives: to improve my aerobic endurance by varying the speeds of my running. Lovely. This is going to be sort of personal performance or achievements on this one, okay? We've got, I was very happy with my performance. I maintained 80% max heart rate throughout. So just a detail of what they actually achieved. And then here, C, of course, this is intensity levels. Okay, intensity level. So really useful to see here. And of course, that relates to the FIT principle directly. We've got aims and objectives on this side. So a slightly different training diary here. So around about the same time. Hour long to improve strength by taking part in free weight session. You see here they've got the resources required, the equipment has been built in, the training method too. So hopefully this is starting to give you a bit of an impression of what a training diary might look like. These are just sort of torn out sections. Again, this is the same one. I just want to remind you, well, I've put equipment here, guys, but really the word I should have used there is resources. Okay, it's a resource that I should have written in there. Resources required. We've got that in there. Aims and objectives we've got up here, guys. Just sort of hiding things to sort of to illuminate what we might need. Resources required here as well. We've got intensity level down here, which is a nice way to have a look at this as well. Oh, by the way, I just realised, completely screwed up earlier. I did miss something off the bottom of here, which is intensity level. I've already referred to that twice in the examples, but I missed that out. It's one of those cases where that was on the next part of, it was on the next page in my notes. So we're talking about percentage of your heart rate max, or it could be your RPE rating. You need to include that in your training diary, okay? So let's just go down a bit further, finish off down here. So kind of it's the same session really. I'm just trying to give you an impression of what the training diary might look like. Now, again, can I go back to my very initial point right at the start, guys, which is you should be keeping this up to date. I can't stress that importantly enough. You probably want to develop some kind of format too. You know, you've seen an example of what we just did there, basically a table, but you want some kind of format and you want to be able to follow that format. Don't worry if this is a handwritten document. That's absolutely fine. You can type it up afterwards if you want to. You can even take photos of it and show it as a real and authentic and genuine training diary. Training diaries are very, very useful when you come to the review part of the training program and the reflection, the strengths and weaknesses, and also the recommendations going forward. So the training diary, absolutely critical, up to date, get your format right and complete it at the end of each session. Cheers.